I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships.
The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you.
Hey, welcome to JUCK on Bucks on a Friday. Appreciate you so much for joining me. We got a player that many of us thought just might be in this class of 2026 for the Buckeyes, who has scratched the Buckeyes off the board, not coming for his official visit. We'll go over that today, as well as the pre-official visit season mock class here at JUCK on Bucks. I may or may not have made a change on that thing already. I neither confirm nor deny, but I got really excited as today we have got a release of the first 3 weeks of schedules and times, some of the TV games. I mean, obviously we know what the schedule is, but some of the TV games and the TV slots. And I wanted to go over a few of these as it's almost June, and August 28th is the first Thursday where we're going to see some games. Now, there's no bangers, but it'll be nice to have some Big Ten games on TV. A couple of these teams I'm really interested in this year. Minnesota, they're going to play. Buffalo, Nebraska is going to host Cincinnati. I'll be rooting for Cincinnati, even though they don't root for us. Wisconsin's going to play. I want to see what they look like. Michigan State, Illinois, they'll play on Friday. So a lot of cream puff matchups, but we get to check out those teams, and that'll be interesting. But then we get into Friday night, and we get to see Auburn at Baylor at 8 p.m. So that'll be our appetizer, Thursday and Friday, before we head into Saturday, Ohio State, Texas at noon. Thanks to Texas AD Chris Del Conte needing to go to church on Sunday. We've officially got that at noon. That's now been released, and it's, set in stone. At 3:30 that first Saturday, we got Alabama and Florida State on ABC. Can Portal Mike Norvell get some momentum this year going right off the rip? That would be pretty awesome to see Florida State beat Alabama week 1. How funny would that be? At 7:30, we've got LSU and Clemson that night. And then we got a really exciting nightcap as we get to see Utah head into UCLA and take on Nico and the Bruins. Really, we'll be rooting heavily for Utah in that one. Despite what a lot of you say, I root for the Big Ten in the regular season just because it makes us look better. But that one, I'll certainly be rooting for Utah. September 6th, we've got the Cyhawk, Iowa State on Big Noon. We've got Ole Miss, Kentucky. Can Kentucky make it 2 in a row against Ole Miss? That would be pretty funny. We also got a big one for Illinois. So Illinois heads down to play Duke. Duke was a 10-win team last year. Illinois looking like a top 10 team preseason. They're going to need to win that puppy. Duke upgraded at quarterback. Obviously, Luke Altmaier returns for Illinois along with a bunch of starters. So that's going to be an exciting one. At 3:30, we've got Oregon hosting Oklahoma State. Now, that's an interesting game. We'll see if Mike Gundy's boys can rebound from a horrible season, really out of character. Things look like if they don't rebound this year, it's just going downhill with Mike Gundy, who is tied for the second longest tenured coach in college football with Kyle Whittingham at Utah behind Kirk Ferentz, who's number 1. Gundy been there 20 years now. One of the more underrated coaches in college football. That guy's had like 10 plus win seasons at Oklahoma State in 20 years, which is pretty incredible. So can he rebound? We get our first look at Oregon. Dante Moore is the quarterback, the offensive line with 2 great new transfers and Emmanuel Pregnan, Isaiah World. Interesting to see what that offense is going to look like. Then Joe Moorhead and my Akron Zips travel into Nebraska to stick it to the coward Matt Rule, which I would absolutely love. My second least liked coach in the Big Ten outside of Lincoln Riley. And at 7:30, we got the big one. Michigan heads into Oklahoma on ABC, which will be incredibly fun. John Mateer in his first game in Oklahoma. Oklahoma, new offense, trying to rebound from a lousy season. And a lot of people have them right outside the top 10 in their rankings. Michigan obviously finished hot last year. Is Bryce Underwood going to be the starter? Or are they going to start with Mikey Keene and maybe have a package for him? The Michigan defense, they're all hanging their head on that. How good is it going to be? I'm excited to see that one. Then when we roll into week 3, we have got some bangers. On September 13th, Wisconsin heads to Alabama at noon. Can Wisconsin get some revenge? I mean, wouldn't that be great? That'll be on ABC or ESPN. And I'll definitely be a Big Ten homer on that one. Not only that, but I've got family in Wisconsin. If there's another team I root for in the Big Ten or I want success for, it's certainly now Wisconsin with my family ties and with Luke Fickell up there. I look at that schedule Wisconsin has this year, and I just hope that they give him a little grace like Florida gave Billy Napier some grace last year in year 3 there after 2 horrible the first and second year were terrible, just like Luke Fickell's. But his schedule was so tough last year that even though he had a bad year, they gave him another pass. And now they enter the year top 10. Can Fickell do the same thing? I would love to see him clown Kalen DeBoer, who was whining about his schedule the other day, and I can't stand that. Also, I can count on one hand the number of times I have rooted for Alabama in my life. On Big Noon that day, Oregon going to Northwestern. Now that I'm thinking about it, Northwestern, are they still playing at that little stadium, the little tiny one on the lake? How crazy would that be to see a Big Noon game from there? Or do I have that wrong? Is Northwestern going to Oregon? I might have that wrong. I'm going to have to double check that. But another look at Dante Moore, the Oregon fans are really excited about this kid. So I'm really interested to see what he's got. At 3:30, we've got an early SEC banger. Georgia heading into Neyland South to take on Tennessee, and then a loaded primetime. We've got our only confirmed Buckeye night game of the year as Ohio State hosts Ohio at 7:30. My buddy Dan is holding out hope, and he seems to think that we got a shot at the Penn State game being at night. But if we don't, then the Bobcats and the Buckeyes are the only night game we have this year at home. Not only that, but this game will premiere on Peacock, which we remember last year, Michigan State and Ohio State played on Peacock. Andrew Siciliano, Colt McCoy on the call. One of the worst games, man. We talked about that for 2 weeks. It was so bad. But I cannot stand this because in that same time slot, we've got Texas A&M and Notre Dame at Notre Dame on NBC. We've got Florida at LSU on ABC. And I've been saying this forever. This is why I cannot stand Ohio State playing these MAC games at night. Of course, I'm going to watch every game of the Buckeyes. And when the Buckeyes are on, I know a lot of you guys can do like split screens and watch. Like I got to be focused on Ohio State. It just doesn't work for me. I miss too many things. I miss the nuance of the game. I want to hear the call. Like I just can't watch multiple games when the Buckeyes are on. So I want to get that win from the MAC team in the books at noon and watch the sweet primetime games. And I can't do that because I'll be not only that, but when it's on Peacock, I can't do the split screen from YouTube TV. So it's a double whammy. It's terrible. Then we got another great nightcap as we have a standalone Cal and Devin Brown as the starter for the first time over at Cal in the ACC. Take on, who do they take on? Minnesota. Cal takes on Minnesota at Cal. Devin Brown against a Big Ten team. That's going to be exciting as heck. I wish that Cal hadn't hemorrhaged their entire team in the offseason because Devin Brown could have had an opportunity to have a decent team. As it stands, not really going to have a very good team, but I'm still going to be rooting for him, and I can't wait to see him start as the Cal quarterback against a Big Ten team in prime time. That'll be awesome. Not prime time, standalone game in the late window. That'll be a whole lot of fun. Speaking of Tennessee, conference loyalty, I mixed it up a little bit with a Tennessee fan on Twitter yesterday. Someone made a comment about the Texas AD saying no to the Sunday game for the Buckeyes. And this Vols fan said the SEC speaks and Ohio State listens, to which I said, you've got to latch onto your conference to get yourself a win against Ohio State any way you can. That's very emasculating. And he said, at least I have something to have pride in. Who do you have? Oregon? No, I have my team. My team is the one that carries the conference. I don't need to live vicariously through a first-year conference member to get my wins against another team. I really got him, didn't I, guys? Appreciate those of you watching today. We are really down right now as far as views and downloads, and those of you listening on Spotify or Apple TV, you guys are the best. It's never nice. It's just that time of year, but you see the views go down, you see the downloads go down, and it's tough because you make a lot of effort. The same effort, even more effort, because there's not as much to talk about to try to come up with the show, but the views go down. So that's a real bummer, which means those of you who are watching now and listening now are the diehards, and I appreciate you guys. You're the realest. You're the best. Please make sure you're subscribed and you like today's show. All right. So we had some breaking news yesterday, and I was going to put this out immediately when it happened, but I figured I'll wait till tomorrow's show. The Ohio State running back board heading into official visit season, kind of 4 or 5 guys on the board right now, maybe 6 if you really stretch it out to Damon Ferguson as an emergency plan, but there doesn't need to be an emergency plan. And I'll get to that in a minute. But for the main guys, number 1 back in the class, Savion Hyder, out of Virginia, down to his top 4, Ohio State, Michigan, Tennessee, and Georgia. In town this weekend, and he is the Buckeyes' primary goal, number 1. Ohio State going to be willing to pay a considerable amount of NIL to land this, but as usual, not going to be the top offer. That'll probably be Michigan or Tennessee, as Georgia plays it very similar to Ohio State. Not going to be the top offer. Desperate teams pay freshmen more than their starters, and the other 2 teams fall into that category. So with number 1, Savion Hyder, you've got number 2, Derek Cooper, out of Chaminade Madonna. That's Jeremiah Smith, Kenyatta Jackson's high school. He'll be in town June 2nd, June 22nd, and he's a top 3 back in the class. He's down to Miami, Georgia, Florida State, Ohio State, and Auburn, but a lot of momentum. Former Georgia commit, decommitted, but still very tight with Georgia. A lot of momentum with Miami. Georgia, they've got a ton of interest right now, and they're really pursuing heavy and have prioritized Jay Lamar, who's another guy loosely on the Buckeyes board. They haven't really made much momentum with him, but he's there. I think he ends up at Georgia. They're really after him hard, and he's my favorite after Savion Hyder in this class. I'm not going to get my wish. Then you got Favor Akee from Delaware, and probably been to Ohio State 5 times since he got his offer. I'm not sure why he's not committed yet, but I expect it to come soon. The guy's a lock. Top 15 back in the class now, and that's awesome for him. He's visited Miami, USC. Those are his other 2 big offers, and certainly seems like a Buckeye lock, and I expect we'll see this one pretty soon. And then you've got Carson Baker. Carson Baker out of Langston Hughes High School. That's Aaron Nolan, Jelani Thurman's high school. 4-star, top 20 running back in the class. 6'1", 200 pounds. Excellent speed. I mean, like a 10.6, 100 meter. Great size. Not great between the tackles. Not really great at creating, but really, really talented. Not everybody has everything. He said a couple weeks ago Ohio State was his front runner. Even got the Fong Bomb RPM on him to Ohio State. And it looked like, should Ohio State miss on Savion Hyder, miss on Derek Cooper, that this class was going to have to settle, and I say that ironically, for Carson Baker and Favor Akee, which would have been a really, really nice class. Well, yesterday afternoon, Carson Baker announced he will no longer be visiting Ohio State. They're off the board. He talked to Steve Wiltfong, told him Florida and Texas are now at the top of his board, and the RPM got moved to Florida, which isn't that great for your job? You get to screw up and then just change it to Florida. Such is recruiting these days, and trying to predict it is ridiculous anyway, but we try anyway. But what happened here? Was it a mutual decision? Was it he just fell out of love with Ohio State? Was it Ohio State's decision? Who knows? When you look at Ohio State in the position they're in right now, does it matter? Not at all. Unless you think that Carson Baker was a Bo Jackson, James Peoples type of prospect. I personally don't. Would have been a nice back to have in the class. But when we look at this class, if you're Ohio State, you're swinging for the fences for Savion Hyder and Derek Cooper. You've got Favor Akee pretty much locked in the class. When you look at 2026, you have three down running backs that are, your horses, and James Peoples, Bo Jackson, and Isaiah West. I think most everybody in Buckeye Nation at this point is a believer in both James Peoples and Bo Jackson. Legit dudes. Personally, I'm a really strong believer in Isaiah West, and he is also one of those types. I believe that the coaching staff believes that as well. Then you've got Turbo Rogers, Sam Williams-Dixon, We've obviously not seen anything Turbo can do at the collegiate level. I don't anticipate Sam Dixon to ever be a whole lot at Ohio State, but he showed himself well in the spring game, and he's getting better. You also have, heading into the year, the portal available to you, and Favor a key locked up. That's 6 backs. Favor another 3 down back with a pretty high floor and pretty high ceiling, really. So when you look at that, you got 6 backs, 4 of them are 3 down backs, which means unless you think Carson Baker is a huge difference maker, then you're good. You got plenty right there. So you swing for the fences for Savion Hyder or Derek Cooper to get that dude, top tier dude. And at any rate, 2026 looks good. In addition, you go into next year, if you don't get Savion Hyder or Derek Cooper, and you're in on right now the number 1 back in the class, and that's David Gabriel George, you're looking really good for him right now. And having Savion Hyder or Derek Cooper in the class, not great for him. If you don't have them, you've got that year between Bo Jackson, who I think is the dude, and David Gabriel George, and that's really good. So I like the way this is shaping up. You're taking your shot at the big dogs. If you don't get them, then it is what it is. You didn't really need 2 backs in this class. It was never something you needed. You're still going to have 6 with Favor. So that's the way I see this shaping out at running back. And we'll go over the mock class right now as to what we think it's going to be at the end here. As far as Hyder, he's in town this weekend. I don't think anybody knows anything this dude's going to do. I don't believe the Tennessee momentum we're hearing right now. I don't have any reason to believe it because we've heard momentum to Georgia. We've heard momentum to Michigan, now Tennessee. I think that his parents, his family have done a great job at not letting any real news get out to show any real momentum. This could be Ohio State just as easily as anybody else. The only thing I've ever thought is there was some real Michigan bonding there with Tony Alford, because it was pretty clear when Tony went to Michigan that Savion took a little swipe at Ohio State, and Tony was his dude, and Tony's still his dude, and now Michigan can pay. So I think they're sitting in a position of real strength here, and he just might end up there. I hope he ends up at Tennessee if he doesn't end up there, or if he doesn't end up with us and not up there, because he's legit. He's the real deal. And Derek Cooper, I do believe the momentum to Miami for him. And I think Georgia probably sitting second. But if they get Jay Lamar, then that crosses him off the board for them. We're going to see the dominoes fall here. In the end, I don't think the Buckeyes get any of these guys. I think it's Favor, and that's the class. Now, somebody was irritated with my ranking of Carlos Loughlin, and I wanted to explain that. So what I did was I ranked all the assistant coaches as far as who's the best recruiter at the current time, 1 through 7. And it's very fluid, obviously, because so many of these guys are working off just 1 year of data, right? Like Locke has 1 class. James Laurinaitis has, he's working on 1 and a tick. Peyton Pierce, then he has first class. Guerreri's working on class number 2. Walt's just working on class number 4. Like, going to be a ton of movement in here because each class represents, for a lot of these guys, 50% of their body of work. So ton of movement is going to happen with that at the end of this class. But when we talk about these guys and we're ranking these assistant coaches, the floor for an Ohio State assistant coach is very, very high because they coach at Ohio State. And they're all very good, and that's by design. Ryan Day looked for that. I want good recruiters. It's part of his, emphasis with them. It's half your job. It's part of what he's looking for when he's bringing guys in. So when I try to judge this, I go off a couple things. Number one, how difficult is that individual recruitment that guy landed? And I'll give an example here. You look at Keenan Bailey, Nate Roberts, 15 minutes from Norman, Oklahoma. Got a brother, had just transferred into Oklahoma, grew up a Sooners fan. In addition, despite his ranking, which was, not super high, he was very high on a lot of people's boards. Oregon after him hard. He was once a commit to Notre Dame. Oklahoma obviously really wanted him. He was number 1 on Ohio State's board. So how do you do with who's highest on your board. And he was the Buckeyes' number one guy. Keenan made that clear. And that poll is about as difficult as it gets in a scenario like that. Like that right there, despite him not being a number one dude, he was number one on the Buckeyes board from Oklahoma, brother at Oklahoma. That's about as difficult as it gets. Keenan zeroed in on the guy, wouldn't take no for an answer, went to his basketball games with t-shirts printed out, got his dude. So that's like a grade A, like, man, that's a huge win, right? Now, the truth is, these guys are all excellent recruiters, very hard to judge and very hard to parse between them. When we look at Locke's class, let's look at his class. He's got one class, all three prospects I really liked. I pounded the table, cut the film myself for Isaiah West, had him on the show. I liked him so much as a young man. He's fantastic. He's a great back. He will not fail, will not fail. What was the degree of difficulty with that recruitment? It was none at all. He flipped him from Kentucky. Isaiah walked in to the Woody and flipped like that. He believes he's a big time back. His option was Kentucky, and Ohio State came calling, and that was it. The Block O won that recruitment. So that's one for the Block O. Granted, Lachlan had to, it's his recruitment. He did it. But that's a Buckeye win. Bo Jackson, a top 10 back in the class, an excellent running back. Also, an extremely shy kid from Cleveland who didn't really want to leave Ohio. He flirted a little bit with Georgia. He liked the idea of it. In the end, he was never going to leave Ohio. He's not one of these kids that wanted to do that. Again, that's the state produced, and the Block O won the recruitment. Of course, yes, Lachlan also wins, but the degree of difficulty in both of those recruitments is next to nothing, honestly. When you look at Turbo from Alabama, was committed to Alabama to Saban's class. You had this crossover to Kalen DeBoer's class, and they didn't really want him. Same with Zion Grady. They didn't really want him either. That DeBoer regime is a little odd, man. Those are two really talented players that were layups, and they didn't really want him. But Lachlan had the leg up. He had the leg up with the kid from Alabama because he was the first kid that offered him ever out of high school or 8th grade. And they're from the same hometown. So he had a leg up. It was a good recruitment. He certainly earned it. That was the most impressive one, the highest degree of difficulty. The other two just feel like, all right, man, great. Yeah, they're great. They're great wins, but they're kind of Block O's, and the degree of difficulty wasn't so high. So that's all we have to judge him from yet is that one class. This one right here, even still, you're going into this class here, and it's like, all right, not a huge need to bring in, a superstar back in this class. So we'll judge him off of this class and see what happens. If he nails Hyder or Cooper, the top of his board, like, all right, now he's legit. I just don't think he's cemented it to us yet. And when you look at the Oregon classes, like, no, there's nothing there that's super impressive at Oregon either. So I'm waiting to see it from him. The verdict is still out for me. I think he's got it. I think he's got it all, right? But I don't think we've been able to see it yet because there hasn't been a big degree of difficulty. All right, let's get to the mock class now. And we'll start with the offense. And here are the 5 stars on the board. The big whales out there, obviously Savion Hyder, Derek Cooper, the running backs we've just discussed. Then we've got the offensive linemen, Felix Ojo and Darius Gray. Felix Ojo, 5-star tackle out of Texas. Darius Gray, 5-star interior offensive lineman out of Virginia. But let's start with who we're going to land in this class, and we'll start with quarterback. I don't know what else to say, man. It's Luke Fahey because he's the only one that's got an official and the only one we know that is going to get an offer here soon that's still on the board for the Buckeyes. So the 4-star top 20 quarterback from Mission Viejo, Philip Bell's teammate, we're going to go ahead and go with Luke Fahey at quarterback. Are we done with wide receiver? Will we see a 5th added? I doubt it. We're going to stick with 4. At running back, is Ohio State able to land Favor Aki? Yes, they're going to land Favor Aki. Do they land Savion Hyder? Do they land Derek Cooper? I'm going to go with no. They do not, and that's fine. Over at offensive line, you've got Sam Greer committed, Max Riley committed, Tucker Smith committed. Next guys on the board, the top tackle, Felix Ojo, the top interior guy, Darius Gray. Other true tackles on the board that could wind up in the class. You got Chance Campbell out of Florida, 6'8", 300 pounds. He's a top 600 player, 3-star, an interesting prospect. He'll be in for his official on June 13th. Another prospect, JB Shabazz out of North Carolina, 6'7", 295, top 350 in the country, 4-star. I'm not crazy about him. He doesn't look like he likes football in his film. Then you've got Aaron Thomas, 6'7", 300 pounds. I love him. Bucks were his first big offer. He is a 3-star, top 600 player in the country, but only because he just played 1 year on offense. He was a defensive player. He's out of Arizona, and after the Bucks offered, Texas A&M, Texas hopped on his board. He's in town this weekend for his official. Got family that loves Ohio State. His upside is really big, much bigger than JB Shabazz. I really like him. You've got Duron Parks. Duron Parks has kind of been floating out there for a while. Was in Hurricane, West Virginia. Moved down to Florida, 6'5", 350, a little bit overweight. Grew up wanting to be a Buckeye, which I love. He's a 4-star, top 300 kid. I'm not too crazy about him. I don't think the Buckeyes are really pushing for him, but we'll see what happens there. Got officials with Kentucky and Auburn, as well as Ohio State. He's more of a project-y kind of guy. Interior guys. Sam Rosenborough, 6'5", 285, 4-star, top 200 kid out of Clearwater, Florida. He will be in for an official on June 13th. Also has officials to Florida State, Texas, and Texas A&M. Texas and Texas A&M are in on everybody that we're in on this year. It was like this with Oregon and Texas last year. This year, it's Texas A&M and Texas. All right. Now, this kid I love, Brett Colajay. Brett Colajay is the nastiest of the nasty. His film is so fun. He is a dirt dog offensive lineman who just loves to mix it up. You can just see it. It just pops off the film. 6'5", 320, 4-star, top 300 player out of IMG. Tennessee, Georgia, Miami, Ohio State, Colorado, his official visit list. Been to Ohio State just one time. It's never felt to me like there was any momentum or much interest on his end, but he is coming up for an official. So there's certainly some interest. I think you guys would absolutely love him. Matter of fact, I'll play his film while I'm talking about him. I just don't, it would be really surprising to me if it came out of this official and we heard some positive news. But I think the Buckeyes really like him. I would sure love to have him. I just don't see it as a possibility for real. Then we got Drew Evers. Drew Evers out of Flower Mound, Texas, 6'3.5", 285, 4-star, top 200 overall player. Projects to be a center. 5 official visits scheduled. We've got Texas A&M, LSU, Penn State, SMU, and Ohio State. Let's get to the winners. We'll start with the guy that we just covered, Drew Evers. Tyler Bowen is going to beat Texas A&M in that pile of losers for Drew Evers and get his true center in the class. He loves him. I love him. Unfortunately, the Buckeyes are going to miss on Felix Ojo. They're going to miss on Darius Gray. No 5-star offensive lineman from out of state this year. Tyler Bowen in an abbreviated class. You can't really fault him for not landing any whales, but I do think he's going to nail down a top 200 player in Sam Rosenborough. Sam Rosenborough out of Florida. When he does that, you're going to be looking at Max Riley and Sam Greer, 2 top 100 guys. Sam Rosenborough and Drew Evers, 2 top 200 guys. Tucker Smith out of Arizona. And finally, Aaron Thomas, who will end up being a steal, a 3-star, top 600 guy who's absolutely got a ceiling that's just high as anybody else on this board here, except for Felix Ojo. And I think that this is just going to be a ridiculous offensive line haul. You're looking at 6 really high-level prospects. What a difference a year makes. What a difference one guy makes, or 3 guys, as it were, that are now coaching the offensive line. Now, taking a look at this offense as it's complete, if this were the class, how do you feel about it? You missed out on Felix Ojo. You missed out on Darius Gray. Those were your 2 5-stars on the offensive line. But this is a beast offensive line. High-level potential. You got 2 monsters in Sam Greer and Aaron Thomas. You got a true center. You got Max Riley and Sam Rosenborough, Tucker Smith. Really solid interior guys. So I love the offensive line. I love the running back, a local running back with a ton of potential and a high floor. And the fact that you didn't take the superstar back, you got the perfect superstar back lined up next year in David Gabriel George, who, in my opinion, every bit of the back Savion Hyder is. And you're now spaced out with Bo Jackson and him, which makes it more likely for him to get in the class. You got a solid looking quarterback who, quite honestly, is never going to be projected to be the starter at Ohio State. And you got a total stud wide receiver room. Corbin Fordham, now up to 227 pounds. I think he's going to shoot up in the rankings. Really good receiving tight end. His blocking will get better with more weight. I think you have totally filled your needs here on offense with high-level players, and your needs were 4 wide receivers, 6 offensive linemen. You checked all your boxes. This might not pop off the paper to a lot of people as a fantastic class, but I think it's absolutely perfect for what you needed, and particularly that offensive line. In year one, it's just great. So I'm really happy. Now, anything else that goes above and beyond this, huge bonus. All right, let's move over to defense, and we'll start at corner where you have Jordan Thomas and Jacob Weatherspoon committed. If you end the class with just those two, how do you feel about it? I feel quite well about it. The cornerback room in good hands. Justice Fitzpatrick, the stud left out there on the board, a top 50 overall kid, a total beast. If you're able to get him, it's a huge boon to the class. If not, it's not that big of a deal. At safety, out there on the board, you got Braylon Womack, who is the number 1 safety in the class. Of course, Ohio State going hard after him. Now you've got Jet Washington scheduled for an official visit, also another top-rated safety. He will be coming into town. This is a new development. The Buckeyes have had a relationship with him for a long time, but there never felt like there was any momentum. There still doesn't feel like there's a ton, but it's pretty noteworthy that he's coming in for an official now. Donovan Webb was a player I've talked about a lot. I really liked. He is no longer coming in for an official. He's off the board. At linebacker, your options now are Xavier Griffin, Sincere Johnson, and Tyler Atkinson. 3 really highly rated guys. Xavier Griffin and Tyler Atkinson, number 1 and number 2 in the country. Tyler Atkinson does not have his official schedule yet to Ohio State. The other 2 do. Tyler is releasing them one at a time like a diva, which I'm not crazy about. The other 2 will definitely be in for theirs. Xavier Griffin just got a crystal ball to Alabama. We've been talking about that for a couple days. Everybody thinks he's going to end up at Alabama. Maybe he does. I wish he would have ended up at Georgia. That way it would have made it easier for the Buckeyes to get their number 1, who is Tyler Atkinson. We'll see what happens there. Now, let's go to the money spot here, and we will go over to the defensive line. Starting with the big boys in the middle. The options here visiting this week is Cam Brickle out of IMG, who was my choice on the dream class to be your 1 tech at 6'2", 300 pounds, moves really quick. This is his 3rd high school. A lot of people aren't crazy about that. Is what it is, man. I like the kid a lot. And he made my dream class. You've also got Preston Carey. I'd be really happy with this as well. Out of IMG, 6'4", 300 pounds. Hardworking kid, loves the gym, posts pictures of it all the time. Eats up a double team very nicely. Higher rated, the Cam Brickle, in a top 300 guy. We've also got Emmanuel Ruffin out of Alabama, 6'4", 290. He will be in next week for his official. Top 250 kid, good athlete for his size, pretty quick. He will also be visiting Florida, Texas, Alabama. And that final visit will be at Alabama, and they're really in on the Alabama kid. I don't think this is much of a possible move here. I think that's probably really not realistic. Let's move to the 3 techs. You got PJ Dean at 6'3", 255, top 100 kid, the number 5 defensive lineman in the class, total stud, offensive lineman who's moving to deep. Well, he played defense, but he was going to be an offensive lineman in college until he decided, I'm going to be a defensive lineman. Total dog. Everybody knows it. Everybody wants him. He made the dream class. Will he make the mock class? Then you got Deuce Gerald's 6'1", 275. That's a monster, man. He's a monster. He plays like a monster. I love him. The number 6 defensive lineman in this class. Then you've got Damari Simeon, 6'2", 275 out of New Jersey. Definitely a guy we would love in this class, a top 200 kid overall. Down to Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and Texas. We've got our new guy, Kari Wilder, 6'4", 255, top 200 kid out of California. Junipero Serra, Washington, UCLA, then Notre Dame and Ohio State. He is in town this weekend. So gets an offer, gets a visit from Larry Johnson and Matt Patricia, schedules an official immediately. I wouldn't be surprised if he committed real soon. Like, I think he's really enamored with Ohio State. I love his tape. Love it. Would love to have him. Then you got Carter Lucky, 6'5", 270, top 300 kid out of Georgia, older brother. Lawson Lucky's at Georgia. His dad and his dad's two brothers, triplets, played at Georgia. I don't really think this is much of a possibility, despite people saying that it is. I just don't buy it. And that doesn't make me disappointed at all because he's pretty low on my board out of all these guys. Moving out to edge, I believe the guy the Buckeyes want the most, not the highest rated guy, but pretty close, Luke Waffle, the number 10 edge rusher in the country, out of New Jersey, down to Ohio State, Penn State, Texas, USC. 6'5.5", 245, looks like Jack Sawyer. Dude's a total stud. Total stud, strong side defensive end, quick, nasty. Older brother started at Michigan, transferred to Penn State. Will the Buckeyes get him? Will he be in the mock class? He's not my number one, though. My number one is Carter Meadows because I really want one of these dudes. One of these dudes. 6'6", 225, speed edge rusher, long, length, the arms, all of it. All the stuff that everybody else seems to get. The Dylan Stewart type guy, like that's the guy this is. He is a Midwest recruit, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, South Carolina. The number 6 defensive end in the country. This is doable. This is winnable. And I really wish the Buckeyes would win this damn one because it just feels like this is the type of guy we never get. And despite as much as I love Luke Waffle, that's why he's on the board number 1 for me, because it's the guy we never get. You've also got Jake Krull, the number 7 edge in the country, 6'2.5", 220, pass rush specialist, got all the moves, super polished, ton of burst, really, really quality football player. Landon Barnes out of Duncanville in Texas. He is 6'3.5", 235. Jackson Ford out of Pennsylvania, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Stanford, and Wisconsin. And then you go to the beanpole. Keyshawn Elizer, 6'5", 190 pounds, 45th ranked edge in the country, a clear project, got some pretty decent film. He's fast. He's long, obviously, getting a little bit bigger already. Could he be the budget Carter Meadows? He just might be the budget Carter Meadows. All right, we've seen the dream class. Let's unveil the mock class. And we will start at defensive tackle. Deuce Gerald's big score, top 100 player, Buckeyes land him, along with PJ Dean, another top 100 player. Love those two together. And Kari Wilder. I love Kari Wilder's film. I think he's a total steal. That right there is a really good haul. Unfortunately, you didn't get that true one tech that I was hoping to get, but I can't be disappointed with that. At edge, Jackson Ford and Keyshawn Elizer. And once again, the Buckeyes have missed that premier edge, and they had so many options to make it work. They had Carson Meadows. They had Luke Waffle. They had Jake Krull. They had all these options, and they get Jackson Ford, a good-looking prospect, and they get Keyshawn Elizer, a total project that's not going to help anytime soon. You know, granted, he could be something at some point, but that is a real shame. That's a real shame. You needed it. You did not get it. That's a big F at edge. At linebacker, were you able to land Tyler Atkinson or Xavier Griffin? The answer is no. You don't get them, but you do get CJ Sana and Sincere Johnson. In my mind, that is a very good-looking linebacker class, and you continue to stack talent in the linebacker room. It's unfortunate. You certainly wanted those game-breaking linebackers, one of them, just to feel like Georgia one time with one of those freakazoids. But we do got Arvell Reese, so sometimes you get one that just pops out of nowhere and ends up being that dude. It just might be Sincere. Who knows? At cornerback, you're going to finish the class with Jordan Thomas and Jacob Weatherspoon. No Justice Fitzpatrick. Now, the good news, these are top 250 guys, not super highly rated, but I believe the Buckeyes had Jordan Thomas rated really high on their board, which means I'm going to go ahead and trust their evaluation. until they prove me wrong. And at corner, they have not done that yet under Tim Walton. So I'm excited about it regardless. At safety, we landed a 5-star in Braylon Womack. And this safety class, the number 1 and number 2 safety overall in the class with Simeon Caldwell. So this is our defense. How do we feel about this overall? You address some needs on the inside of the defensive line. You kind of whiffed on the exterior, but you address the needs on the inside. You certainly got 2 quality linebackers, 2 quality corners, and you excelled at safety more than anyone in the country. So all in all, you get an A at defensive tackle, you get a B at corner, you get an A+ at safety, you get a B+ at linebacker, and we'll give you a based on what you needed, you get a C at edge. You get a C at edge, but really it's a B with who the players are. Just based on what you needed, it's a C. So that's what I got. Pulling up the offensive mock class again to take a look at that. And there we go, guys. All right, guys. That'll do me for on a Friday. I hope you all have a great weekend. And if we got enough content to think of something for a weekend show, maybe we'll pop on and do a live one. Hopefully we can. We'll see if some news breaks. If not, I will talk to you guys on Monday. Appreciate you so much. Please like the show. JUCK on Bucks out.